As you learn more about JavaScript, you'll realize that it provides different and perhaps more efficient ways to do similar things. Working with functions is one of those things. So far you have learned how to write a function as a function declaration and as a function expression. A function declaration, for example, defines a function using the function keyword followed by the name of the function. And a function expression, for example, is a function without a name that's assigned to a variable. In this lecture, I'll teach you another method for writing functions. You'll learn how arrow functions provide a special, more concise syntax for creating functions. Arrow functions are very similar to function expressions. In fact, they're properly called arrow function expressions. The basic syntax for an arrow function looks like this. You omit the function keyword and after the parentheses add the arrow token, which is just an equal sign immediately followed by the greater than sign. The body of the function can remain the same, but as you'll soon learn, there are ways to make arrow functions even more compact. Let's look at an example. To code along with me, first download the course folder from the link in the description below and open it with your favorite code editor. Here I'm using Visual Studio Code. From the course folder, open the exercise folder called JavaScript Functions. And then open the index.html file using Google Chrome. Here I also open the JavaScript console. In the index.html file, remember to link arrow.js file. In arrow.js file, this generate random number function is written as a function declaration. That's a function that begins with the function keyword followed by the name of the function and a pair of parentheses and curly braces. Now let's convert this function to an arrow function. Arrow functions are similar to the function expressions you learned about earlier. So let's first update this function declaration to a function expression and then to an arrow function. I'll start by creating a variable named generateRandomNumber. And assign an anonymous function to it. You can make this function even more concise using the arrow function syntax. To turn this function expression into an arrow function, first I'll remove the function keyword. Then after the parentheses, add an arrow token, which is an equal sign immediately followed by a greater than sign. Alright, so now we have rewritten the function assigned to the generateRandomNumber variable as an arrow function. Let's test this function by calling it in the JavaScript console. I'll save the changes, refresh the page, and in the console I'll call the function. Okay, it works. We get a random number between 1 and 10. I'll try it a few times. And notice how arrow functions themselves are anonymous functions, because they don't have a name and you call the function using the variable name. Keep in mind that arrow functions mostly behave like function expression. For example, arrow function expressions are not hoisted or lifted up to the top of their scope by the JavaScript engine. They will be loaded only when the JavaScript engine gets to the line of code they're on. So if you try to call an arrow function expression before it's defined, you'll get an error. Now currently, this arrow function has no parameters. If you want to add parameters to the function definition, you can add them just as you do in function declarations and expressions. For example, I'll add a max number parameter inside the parentheses, then use the value of the max number parameter inside the function. I'll save the changes, refresh the page, and in the console, I'll call the function. I'll pass 10,000 as a maximum number. Press enter. Okay, it works. I'll try it a few times. Besides being concise, the arrow function has other benefits and help with common JavaScript problems and gotchas. Like other features, they have advantages and disadvantages, which are beyond the scope of this lecture. And keep in mind that arrow functions are not meant to replace regular function declarations or function expressions. It's just a newer syntax for writing functions. Function declarations, for example, are still widely used by developers. They are useful because they work in a slightly different way than arrow functions. For example, function declarations are hoisted while arrow functions are not.